Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast. I'm Andeea, a licensed addiction counselor, and along with my co-host, Laura Kissmann, a quantum nutritionist, we will be inviting expert scientists, clinicians, survivors, and thrivers to distill their pearls of wisdom attained from applying quantum biology to their fields of research and everyday lives. Our goal is to bring you easy to understand principles and practices about the study of light, water, and magnetism so you can take your health into your own hands. This episode is sponsored by VIVARAYS, the only eyewear company that truly understands your biology. VIVARAYS are advanced blue light glasses designed with circadian biology in mind. Unlike typical blue blockers, they filter light in harmony with your body's natural rhythms, helping you sleep deeper, feel more energized, and protect your long-term health. We love companies that support biology-backed wellness, and VIVARAYS is leading the way. Use code QUANTUMHEALTHY at VIVARAYS.com to save 15% and support your sleep, focus, and natural energy the way nature intended. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We have a very special guest and friend on the podcast today, Courtney Voss, and she is a certified nutritional therapy practitioner and breath coach. She calls herself a mind-body nutrition practitioner. When we were so excited to have this conversation today. And yeah, we're just going to jump right in. We were, of course, chatty Cathy's right before we started recording.
So true.
Courtney, why don't we start with your story? I know that you have such you have an amazing story, and there's so many people. I want you to touch on your anxiety because there are so many people who it's debilitating for them. And I know like your story, I heard your story and I was like, we have to have her on the podcast. Share so much of your experience, strength, and hope with those who are struggling today. So you can start your story, of course, wherever you may. But yeah, let's just start there.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for having me on. It's nice to finally meet you. I know we know each other from other circles, but it's nice to put faces with names here. So my story, gosh, it probably starts way longer than I have even memory of, but we'll just start at the age of 18, whenever I had been struggling with pretty bad panic attacks. And I didn't know that that's what they were at the time. But my grandma worked for a psychiatrist's office for many years, decades. And so I went to her and told her what I was experiencing. She got me an appointment in with her employer, and he's a psychiatrist. I went in, I met with him for about 5 minutes and left his office with a prescription for an antidepressant and a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder. I had no idea at the time. I didn't even know what anxiety was. I just knew that I would get these intense fear responses that, no joke, started from like the tips of my toes, and I could feel it radiate through my body to like the ends of my hair. It was just a very encompassing, fear gripping response, and it was absolutely terrifying. So when I got that diagnosis and when I got that prescription, I thought, oh, well, this is going to be easy. You know, now I have a, what is the word?
A diagnosis.
I have like, it comfort in that, I guess. Like there's a reason why I feel this way. And I remember him telling me that, some people can take those prescriptions for a short period of time and then they can come off of them, but some people have to take them for the rest of their life. So we'll just see what happens with you, was kind of what he said. 18-year-old kid, that's what he told me. And that's really where my story began. I was on an antidepressant, although not that one that he gave me at that time, for the next 18 years. So until I was about 36 years old. Wow. And I struggled with anxiety. Was a daily struggle for me. It was one of those things that your eyes would open in the morning and that's the first thing that you would think about. You're kind of checking in with yourself. Like, can I feel the symptoms of anxiety? Do I feel like a panic attack is coming on? It was a very unhealthy behavior of just trying to like check in and see if I was experiencing symptoms. And that persisted, even on medication. So I think I cycled through, let's see, maybe 4 different actual antidepressants, but you know how prescriptions go. Once you're on one, you get a side effect from it. You go to the doctor, talk about the side effect, and then you get another prescription, right? So at one point in my 20s, I was on 9 different prescription medications, and I was
Oh,
just miserable. I had chronic fatigue. I would sleep for no less than 10 hours a night. And then I would wake up in the morning just completely like I hadn't slept a wink. And so I would build my day around being able to take like a 2-hour nap because I was just exhausted all the time. I never recharged. So that was, yeah, that's without, we can, you know, I can answer any kind of questions that you have around the anxiety stuff. But what happened in 2018, I'd been working in corporate America since 2011. And in 2018, I had made the decision to leave an employer that I thought I was going to retire from this company. It's, you know, we're from a small town. It's a big chemicals manufacturing company. It's like once you got a job there in that community, it was like, oh, you're set for life. You know, you're retire from there and you're good. But I was absolutely miserable. It was an incredibly toxic work environment. So in 2018, an opportunity presented itself to move to a different employer, still corporate America, but much smaller and just a different environment. So I finally took the bait on that and I accepted that job. And the moment that I accepted that job, so to leave this, you know, company that I had been at for 7 years that I thought I would retire from, I broke. Like I now affectionately call it my breakdown of 2018, but it was, I completely broke. It shattered me. I lost, you know, I completely lost who I was. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I was terrified at the reflection back at me because I
oh.
didn't know who that person was. It was a very, very difficult time in my life, but it led to the most amazing life that I have now and meeting people like you two and, you know, leaving corporate America and now living in Costa Rica. And it's truly been a blessing that I never could have conceived of at that time because it was so painful. But yeah, it was, gosh, dare I say, worth it.
Wow, it sounds like part of your identity, you were grieving your identity from that place.
100%.
Yeah. Wow.
100%.
So how did you come to find, like, how did quantum biology start to trickle in?
Such a good question. I don't know if I've even tried to nail that down. Let me think. Let me try to process this. So I started, I guess I should say that okay, let me back up. September 1st, 2019 is when I started a ketogenic journey with my husband. So we started the ketogenic diet. He wanted to lose weight. I was just along to support him and figured I could, you know, get rid of some inflammation during that time. At that time, I had already decided that I wanted to come off of my anxiety medication that I had been on for 18 plus years at that time. So, and I'd been working with the professionals. Like I had a therapist, I had a psychiatrist that I had been seeing, and they were all on board. Thank goodness. They were super supportive of like, okay, you know, if we're going to do this, let's do this. So that was about a six month weaning process to get me off of that medication. But part of that process was my time with ketogenic. And then I switched to strict carnivore. And then I got more into like the animal based space. So bringing back in some like cruciferous vegetables and things like that. I, so I have a mom and an aunt that have multiple sclerosis. And that's always been just like a really an underlying fear for me because I, at the time, subscribed to your, you know, you're a victim to your genes mentality, which I don't subscribe to at all anymore, right? But at
Mhm.
the time I did. So anytime a symptom presented itself that I could correlate at all with multiple sclerosis, it would like send me into a tailspin. So anytime a symptom would present itself, I would research it. And somehow, some way, I landed on Jack Cruz. So Dr. Jack Cruz is how he was my intro into like the quantum and circadian space. And then I just, you know, I can hardly dissect any of his information. It takes me, I'm so inefficient at it. So then I started like going to the people like Dr. Sarah Pugh, who has like, she explains it so much more clear for me to understand. You know, I'm just a layperson. So, and then it just kind of like branches out, the family tree branches out from there. But I'm pretty sure it was Dr. Jack Cruz because he's a neurosurgeon. And I was probably Googling something to the effect of blah, blah, blah symptom and multiple sclerosis. And it led me to him. And
Mm.
I'm pretty sure that that's how
Mhm.
this work started for me there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I have just something back to the anxiety.
Mhm.
Yeah, a couple things I want to ask you, but one, I may have mentioned this on the podcast, so I apologize, listeners, if you've all heard this before, but 2 weeks ago, I went to a really interesting group that cold dip. It was like a day-long training to get into this group that where then you're just going to cold dip and do a bunch of breath work. And it was such a cool experience. But one of the two takeaways that I got from that group that day that they really wanted to instill with us is that they're Canadian related, but I'm wondering if you guys will relate. But one is that Canada apparently is the second most addicted country in the world. And the other one is that 40% of Canadian women, and I don't have the sources for these, so I hope that they're right, but 40% of the women in Canada are taking a mind-altering substance. And I thought, could that be true? And then I mentioned it to a few people, and they're like, oh yeah, in my own circles, it's over 40. Like they were just naming off people, and I'm thinking, this is not good. And one of the messages of this group is that it's a very stoic, group where they're trying to encourage you to, take control and just be the example, be the change you want to see, because we've got a really sick society. And I guess in your journey, do you have you seen that as a nutritional therapist? And I guess how's it make you feel? And do you think, how does this compare to the States in your guys' minds?
Yeah. What I see a lot in my clients is almost all of them are on a prescription similar to the one that I was on,
Mhm.
which is an antidepressant. It's not like a benzo or anything like that, but
No, thank God.
antidepressants are, yeah, exactly right. Thank God I wasn't given something like that. But I see it, I can almost, they don't even have to tell me the name of it. They can just tell me that they're on a prescription for their anxiety, and I'll say, "Oh, is it blah blah blah, and is it this amount of milligrams?" And it is almost always exactly that. My men will be on the same prescription but slightly higher, probably because they're men. So it is, yeah, it's pervasive. It's systemic.
It's pretty.
As yeah, as far as mind altering substances, are we talking about like illicit substances, or were they
No, well,
specific?
that's what I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got the feeling it was prescription,
Okay.
but in Canada, marijuana's legal everywhere. And I
Yeah.
mean, and I thought about it too, like you just have to drive anywhere here. And we have cannabis stores at every corner. And then, just go into any, like when I drove home, I had to get gas and I walked in and looked around. I was like, look at all this processed food and, just thinking, yeah, how
I
addicted we
know.
all are. Like, and then,
I
and
know.
big thing here, I don't know if you guys have, is gambling. Is people go to seven, we call them 7-Elevens, and people buy their tickets every week. And even the grocery stores have them. And people are all lined up. And I always look and think, is this where we are? Like, a lot of them are seniors. I
Yes.
think this is they're spending their retirement money on
Yeah.
thinking they're going to win, and week after week they don't win, and it's like another tax.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get political, and I'm not a very
Yeah.
political person, but I just
We
bring it back to how sick are we?
Yeah, we're all looking for that next hit of dopamine, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I recognize this and just my use of coffee. What's interesting
Mhm.
is when I worked in corporate America, when we were back in the States and I worked in corporate America, I would have a quad shot. So 4 shots of espresso in the morning. And then at lunch, I would go to the coffee shop and get another quad shot. So another 4 shots of espresso. I know now I was absolutely looking for a hit of dopamine. And here in Costa Rica, that is cut at least in half. So because my dopamine is the sunlight. It's the water, it's
Mhm.
nature, it's grounding. Like I'm not chasing that hit like I was back in the States. And I noticed this too when we went back to the States for the holidays. We went back to Texas in November, and we were there really through January. And, you start to see some of these behaviors kind of creeping back in. But to your point, Laura, I'm from a small town in Texas, and they're game rooms where we're at, and they're just full of slot machines of retired people or
Oh,
people, unemployed people that are spending their disability checks, their retirement, their social security. getting that hit of dopamine. Like I believe the alcohol is free there. And, they're stuck in a dark room with no windows and they just pull the handle down and try to get something back. But yeah, it's
I was
far
in
as, yeah, go ahead.
just quickly, I was in a small town in northern Alberta and we had a reservation nearby. And we were my husband was a fighter pilot. We were on a fighter base. And to raise money for our kids' hockey team, we had to go to it was this bingo. And it was, yeah, it was all the natives and they were spending their money and we would bring coffees to them. And I'm trying to think I don't know if there was alcohol there. There may have been, but I remember thinking, oh, this is so sad. They're addicted to this bingo.
Yeah. Bingo is pretty fun in their defense. Like you don't have to win for it to be fun, but yeah, they're probably not doing it for that reason. Yeah.
No,
But yes, so mind altering substances, yes, I do see that very extensively in my practice. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Andeea, what were you gonna say? I think I cut you off.
No, I said I know I worked in a casino for many
Oh,
years.
wow.
Yeah, right out of, I can't say out of high school, right out of my GED. I got I got a job at the casino, and yeah, I sold change way back when you put coins in the machines. So I sold change and then I fixed the slot machines. So yeah, random skill. I know how to fix a slot machine. And then I was dealing blackjack towards the end. So
Wow, I'm like super impressed right now. First of all, you broke out of the system by getting your GED. That's amazing. Good for you.
like my mom was like, "You're getting a job and you need to get this."
I say, Courtney, how do you have any like biggest needle movers that worked for you to break that anxiety?
Yes.
Get off
So
meds? Yeah.
Mindset was probably
Mm,
and the reason I like to say mindset is because I got to a point where I was no longer willing to accept the story or the diagnosis or the prescription that had been sold to me all those years. And I think that takes a pretty courageous mindset to be like, you know what? No. I tried this for 18 years and it didn't work. I struggled for 18 years. I'm no longer willing to do that now. So mindset, I say first and foremost, the ketogenic and carnivore or animal-based spectrum of diet was very effective for me.
yeah.
When you have chronic fatigue like stuff, and that's a broad umbrella, but for me, it was chronic fatigue. You don't process glucose like correctly or sufficiently. So I used to get into little tiffs with my husband, not like real ones, but he could eat carbs and he would be energized by them. If I ate carbs, I would be debilitated by them. They would make me completely crash. Well, I know that now is because I wasn't able to utilize the glucose effectively. So going to a ketogenic diet where my fuel source at the time was fat or ketones, it's no wonder that I was able to move the needle so much with my mental health. My brain is finally getting energy that it had been starved of all of those years, right? So I would mindset first, then diet, and then for me, the quantum and the circadian stuff came years later. But I do think that had I known about that way earlier on in my journey, I think that I could have moved the needle far faster. And the reason I say that is because when I first started working with clients as a nutritional therapy practitioner, I almost exclusively just worked on diet and a little bit of mindset. I didn't, when I was first starting out, I didn't really know anything about the quantum and circadian stuff. And I would still see my clients struggle. They would struggle with, sticking to the diet, so discipline and that kind of stuff. And then as I started bringing in this quantum and circadian stuff, then we had liftoff. Like it has been absolutely incredible to see the progress my clients have made just by incorporating these super basic, super simple, mostly free strategies. It's the biggest thing that I could have done. I almost wish that I hadn't gone to a nutritional therapy school.
I know.
No, if I had known about this stuff, I would have saved a lot of money. But man, I just would have been able to I feel like I should go back to the first clients that I worked with and be like, give me another shot.
I know. I totally hear you.
So yeah, that's what worked for me.
Yeah, anybody listening that was a previous client of Courtney's or mine, will you please come back and reach
We'll
out
take you
because we
back.
have
Yes.
completely different protocols now
Yes.
that are working. Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, I'm sure that you benefited from studying the nutritional therapy. We won't take that away. But in fact, just offline, Andeea was just asking me, like she said, Laura, I feel like I should study nutritional therapy to add this, as another
Yeah.
certification. And I'm like,
Fascinated with nutrition, but I technically am not a nutritionist, and we all know here that it's a third of our energy, where we get our energy.
mhm,
And yeah, it is a piece, and then it's like, oh, will people not listen if I don't have like that little certification behind my name? And it's just like like all these
no,
certifications we need, they there's a certification or course for everything now. And it's just it makes us feel like, oh, well, I don't have that, so that means I can't talk about that. And I mean, technically, no, that does not mean that.
Right.
And anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So it's so funny because I was just having this conversation with another practitioner because there was someone in her group that was asking, like, where I don't want to be a dietitian because I disagree with what they teach, but I don't know like where to go in terms of like what to study or what certification to get, blah, blah, blah. And you're right. The only reason I got my nutritional therapy practitioner certification is because clients do hang their hat on the acronym or the initials after your name.
Mhm.
It gives you some sense of authority in their mind. So, and I've talked with other friends that have gone through it, and it's a similar thing. We really did not get out of it what we were hoping to get out of it. So, have you gone through what is it, QABC, QAC?
The QBC.
Yeah, QBC. Have you
Yes,
gone through that?
I'm board certified now in applied quantum biology, and I have a master's degree, and I still have those
Sister,
thoughts.
Sister, you are set. Don't you dare. Unless you are starting your own certification program, don't you dare go and get another one. You are set.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, I still, those thoughts still go through people who have PhDs. I know. I've had a conversation with someone who literally has a PhD who has the same thoughts, like, oh, I don't have this or that. Is somebody not gonna come to me just because, they're looking for X, Y, or Z? But no, anyway,
Yeah,
not want to
you're
get off topic here, but I think that there's so many people in this space who feel who feel that way, or are feeling that way. And I think it's not just in our discipline, but it's in a lot of other places. Or if yeah. And same with the coaching certifications and all that. But
Mhm.
anyway.
I
I
think you're
hear you.
getting a little bit like a mini degree in this podcast. Like just the work we had to do to talk to Morley Robbins, for example, to get ready for that and how,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of nutrition in that in itself. But
And
yeah.
that's part of the fun of working with clients is when someone comes to you and it's not something that you've necessarily like worked directly with, it's
Mhm.
digging into like the
Mhm.
research and the resources and strategies and protocols and stuff that resonate with you with what you know through
Mhm.
your, what is the certification again? I'm sorry, the QBC?
It's the applied quantum biology, yeah.
Okay, through that certification. So it's what what you've learned from that, going and being able to do the research and all that are kind of like in alignment with that. That's the fun. That's the kind of work that we enjoy seeking, not some like curriculum that is set forth by an
Right,
entity that is really paid for by the supplement industry. I mean, that is
right.
what I can say about the program that I went through. They are super, super supplement heavy. And I used to love supplements. At one point, my entire pantry was full of supplements because I would test them. But even like they were so heavy that it was a turnoff for me. And that's saying a lot. So yeah, I don't,
Mhm.
Yeah.
build your own curriculum with people that resonate with you and with like, I'm real big on the resonance stuff now because it
No,
just,
I help people who have addiction, and when they come to me, it's always focused on, what they want to work on. And certainly, like I don't step out of my scope. I always say like, hey, this is what I know about this, and this is what I often just will refer. So I
Mm.
don't even know why I get so worked up in my head.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
these,
we all
I
do.
think we have, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome in all of us, right?
Oh,
And we've probably got some limiting beliefs that are trying to creep up in those kinds of stories that we're telling ourselves, like we're inadequate in some way or we're not going to be able to help them. I mean, those come up for all of us.
Mhm.
And they're just not true. They're absolutely not true.
No,
You
100%.
can and you do help.
Thank you, Courtney.
You're very welcome. I mean it.
Courtney, I know that you do some breath coaching, so I want to make sure we get to that. So, Andeea, help me out and make sure we bring that up. But can we talk a bit about your nutritional therapy, how you coach? Because it sounds like you've done carnivore, you've done keto, done animal based. I've done animal based, so we got that definitely in common. I've done some pure carnivore, but not for that long. Never done keto. I did make keto treats for forever. So everybody called me the keto lady because I used to sell these keto treats, but really it was an excuse to eat something sweet.
Right.
And Dia and I are on this sugar-free diet or sugar-free journey at the moment. So we're staying away from the keto treats. But just curious, like, do you work with do you coach lectins or oxalates? And I know you have an oxalate story I'd love you to bring out because it's
Yeah.
fascinating, but just curious about how you know you're coaching right now. Can you give us some hints and for anybody listening that might be considering working with Courtney that might help?
Yeah, I'd be honored to. So, like I said, my journey did begin strictly with nutrition coaching.
Mhm.
And so it still exists in my practice today. Anyone that comes to see me, they have to fill out a week-long food log before we meet. And just based on what their goals are and what symptoms they're presenting with when they come to me is how I will modify their nutritional protocol. It might be ketogenic, but it might not. That's not, I don't exclusively work with that. Same thing with carnivore. I really love, and that can be actually, those can be unless you've got someone that is so sick that they're willing to do the really hard stuff like that, like
Mhm.
overhaul their diet and just eat, meat for 30 days or 90 days or whatever. A lot of people are going to have a really hard time sticking with that, which is why I say mindset is super, super important. But often what I do when someone comes to me, and again, this is context dependent, but generally speaking, I will remove the most offensive things first, right? So I love having people get rid of anything that is processed. So if it's in a box or a bag, get rid of it. You don't
Yep.
need to be eating it. If it's a single ingredient food, then let's keep it in a pile for now. We can address plant toxins in a moment. Getting rid of seed oils. So these are those, noxious, omega-6, often rancid fatty acids that are pervasive in processed foods. So if you can get someone to stop eating processed foods, you can really remove a big chunk of that from their diet. Let's see, what are some of the other like first things that really sugar is in almost everything. So getting people to minimize or at least do one meal without a sugar containing soda or a sugar containing treat, something like that. And I'm talking about like processed sugars. I can be a little bit more flexible when it comes to the more natural stuff. So like honey and maple syrup, assuming it's actual maple syrup and actual honey. But
Mhm.
there's nuance to all of this, but that at a very basic thing, that's what I'll have them do. Because when I was having people come to me at the very beginning of my practice and I'm like, you need to do carnivore. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to get rid of all of that stuff and you can only eat meat, you can only do eggs, and you can only have, hard cheese. They wouldn't return. Most people they're just not ready for that yet. So kind of like tiptoeing them in. And I do this today. If I feel like someone would benefit greatly from a ketogenic diet, first of all, I can get them there a lot quicker if they get rid of those things that I just mentioned. But also, I might just have them start with make one meal of the 2 to 3 meals that you might be eating, make one meal a ketogenic macro meal. Let's start there. And then, it becomes more digestible, no pun intended, for them to be able to
Mhm.
explore some of these other dietary protocols, if you will. I very much love which I really didn't come on my radar until the quantum and circadian space, the organic, local, and seasonal foods, right?
Mhm.
Our food has a barcode. So that also really resonates with me. So even just having my clients focus on that and doing the circadian stuff, the needle is just, I mean, it just takes off. It's
Mhm.
incredible. So a lot of times I don't even know that these are necessary to the extent that I needed to do them. I just didn't know about these other practices whenever I was going through my own journey. So, and then with regard to plant toxins, so the ketogenic diet, when I did the ketogenic diet, I was eating more vegetables than I'd ever eaten in my entire life. I joke, but it's also true. I didn't grow up with vegetables. Like my mom didn't eat vegetables. We weren't given vegetables. The only time I got vegetables was broccoli, and it was when I went to my aunt's house. It's still my favorite vegetable to this day. But so when I went on the ketogenic diet, I was eating all of these vegetables and I got just significant stomach distension that would not go away even with the ketogenic diet. So that was how we ended up on carnivore and animal based is I
Do you
wanted
think
to
it
try
was
it out.
SIBO?
I don't think it was SIBO. I think it was all of the fiber.
All the fiber. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was all of the fiber that I was eating. I didn't have the SIBO symptoms, which is why I say I don't think it was that. But when we went carnivore and animal based, that almost immediately went away and my bowels regulated. I was still dealing with chronic constipation symptoms whenever I was ketogenic. And when I eliminated that fiber, by and large, for such a long time with carnivore, that subsided. So we all know that there's tons of plant toxins in the foods that we eat. It's their protective mechanism because they're stuck in the ground. And one of them that was most problematic for me, and actually what I see quite a lot in the clients that I work with, is oxalates.
Yes.
Oxalates form crystals in the body. If you look at it under a microscope, it literally looks like a crystal or a shard of glass. And it loves to settle itself in our joints, our organs. So your thyroid, your kidneys, almost all kidney stones are oxalic acid. I also had
There's a lot more research right now coming out on the
yeah.
joints. I've seen the
Hmm.
joints, and the other one was cystic fibrosis.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
new. I'd never
Yeah.
heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So anytime a client comes to me and they're complaining with, joint pain, low back pain, they have sandy stools, foamy urine, I'm immediately thinking oxalates. And so if I do have them eating vegetables, almost always my vegetable list for anyone is going to be low oxalates. Whether they think they have a problem or not,
Yeah.
they probably do. So I almost always will gravitate towards the low oxalate vegetables. But
Right on.
really, if you think about it, those foods are supposed to be seasonal. Like spinach isn't supposed to grow year round. Just because we have access to it year round doesn't mean we should be eating it year round. So historically, before we could fly in spinach from all over, California and
Mm.
Mexico and all these parts of the country, we used to just have it for a small period of time. It's got a very small growing season. And then we would stop for the rest of the year because it wasn't available in our area. And if you're doing it that way, the processing of the oxalates is much less of a burden on the body because you don't have access to it every single day for 365 days of the year. That's not how it works now. Convenience is king. We can get food, any kind of food we want. My aunt in New York can get a pineapple from Mexico. Doesn't mean she should be eating it, but so that's the thing with the organic local seasonal is what resonates with me so much, and I find it resonates with a lot of my clients. It takes a lot of the kind of burn or sting of like just completely overhauling and saying no, you can only have, being very dogmatic about certain dietary regimens. Hope that
And
answers your question.
yeah, oh, it really does. Just to add to it, the organic takes care of the glyphosate, which, if you have too much of that chemical, it affects the gut microbiome and
Absolutely.
the mitochondria, and that can just throw off so many things, as you know, mineral balance, and we can get into copper and iron dysregulation and all
Yeah.
these things. Oh, and I was going to say something else about the oxalates, but can you, while it's percolating in my mind, can you tell us your oxalate story? Because it's
Yes.
unbelievable.
My disturbing oxalate story. So I can't remember what year it was, but before I started the keto carnivore journey, I woke up in the middle of the night with the most intense pain that I've ever felt in my entire life. I've never had children, but I could only liken it to like a natural childbirth. It was so painful. So I woke my husband up, had him take me to the emergency room, and lo and behold, I had a kidney stone. And that was where I learned that most kidney stones are oxalic acid. At that time, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know where that came from or, anything. So I was like, okay, a kidney stone, it's past now, whatever. Well, then I move into the ketogenic diet where I'm eating spinach all the time. And I'm,
Oh God.
yeah, just really rich diet full of oxalates and the plants that I was eating. So one day I was taking a shower and I was just kind of like making sure I got all the water off my body. And I rubbed my hand along my left butt cheek and I felt something snag on my hand. And I rubbed it again. I could feel it again. And I tried to grab it, but I wasn't able to grab it with my fingers. And I go out there and I tell my husband, I think I sat in glass. I forget where we had gone earlier that day, but I think we we were sitting on picnic tables. And I was like, I think when we went to that park or whatever it was, that I sat on glass. Well, I was finally able, like a couple of days later, to get it out, pull it out of my skin. And when I put it in my palm, it looked exactly like a shard of glass. At this point, I'm still thinking it's a shard of glass. It just finally pushed itself out of my body. The next week, the same exact thing happens in the same exact spot on my my left butt cheek. I pull it out again. At this point, like I know it's not glass. It's got to be something. Somehow, some way, oxalates make it on my radar. Probably, divine intervention here. The third week, it happens again. I know for a fact it's an oxalate crystal. I didn't save this little guy, but it lasted those 3 weeks. But that's where oxalates presented for me out of my skin. Now, my GI issues with oxalates is a much more disturbing story. I think it was 2023, if I'm not mistaken, 2022 or 2023. One of those years, a 6-month period, solid 6 months of nonstop oxalate dumping, which meant for me no less than 15 liquid bowel movements a day. I felt like I was living on the toilet. I lost a significant amount of weight. I just could, like, it was the worst oxalate dumping that I could personally conceive of. I would have had it out of my butt cheek if I could, but
Yeah, that was the
we were past,
blessing.
yeah, we were past that at that point. So yeah, and then out of nowhere, literally like the next morning after 6 months had passed, it was gone. It stopped. So
Wow.
yeah, that's my oxalate story. And now I avoid them like the plague.
Yeah. Did you consider putting in a little bit of oxalate to slow down the dumping?
I still do. I did coffee at the time. Remember,
Right.
well, I don't think we were on a record, but I was doing a considerable amount of coffee at that time. I still was. At that time I wasn't doing like dark chocolate or anything like that, but I was still getting small amounts, probably not enough. So what I personally did is I would bring in like the citrate form of minerals is my favorite way to work with oxalates because the oxalates will bind
Yes.
to that citrate and it'll carry it out of the body. So calcium citrate was a good friend of mine then.
Okay.
Yeah, I avoid magnesium citrate because that would have just exacerbated my liquid bowel movement.
Right.
So leaned into the calcium citrate there, potassium citrate for sure.
Avoided, sorry, potassium citrate as well, right?
Not avoiding it. A
No?
lot of potassium citrate.
Oh, it
Yeah.
did help. Okay, I didn't know if
Yeah,
that
the
would that
potassium
would increase
citrate
it.
absolutely helped. I just had to use different forms of magnesium.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but very heavy in minerals there because yes, the oxalates love the minerals.
So just going back to review, I might have missed it when you said it because I finally remembered what my point earlier was.
Sure.
But yeah, but was it the carnivore diet that you think started the dumping?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I
To me.
yeah.
Do what?
I that's what happened to me with my oxalate dumping. It was because of the carnivore.
Oh, was it? What's your story, Andeea?
Well, I just had like keto rash. I didn't have any of the things that as intense as Courtney, but years prior to that, I had kidney stones a couple times, so I know. And there, just to confirm, Courtney, there have been women who have had children who do say that the kidney stone is worse.
No. Okay, so that makes so much
I had to
sense.
be carried. I couldn't walk. Someone had to carry me, and yeah, and so, but I mean, yeah, and then I've always had nasty And when I started getting my light right and, doing the quantum biology stuff, it definitely settled that stuff. I haven't had any of those kinds of issues in a
Yeah.
very long time. But I also like don't watch my oxalates. So I'm actually going to be reading Sally Norton's book soon. So I'm going to learn a lot more. But all I knew is I needed to make sure that at the time I was avoiding them. And I had a small list of like, because I, Googled high oxalate foods and I just like I just tried to stay away from those
Mhm.
ones. And then it passed and it never bothered me again. So, well, I didn't have any butt glass.
Well, you don't know what you're missing.
I had more urinary symptoms, and I feel like whenever I do oxalates, that's what happens is I get urgency,
Yeah.
frequency and urgency. Yeah. But I just had listened today on Instagram to it was an older post by another nutritionist, Justine Stenger, who came, she's in the very much in the quantum space. She came on our podcast and she was linking, this is going back to my point that I couldn't remember earlier. When you mentioned spinach, she talked, there's a vitamin D sunlight relationship where if you're in the sunlight and you're getting the vitamin D, you can process those oxalates easier. And when you made that point, very relevant about there's only, we only would have been eating spinach for a month, let's say, when it was fresh. And what time does it grow? In high UVB
Right.
light, right? But now we're in the middle of winter, here in Canada, wondering why we might not be, you know, metabolizing these, the oxalates the way we should. But
Yeah,
anyway, there's a whole lot
exactly.
more.
Or they're growing them. A lot of times they're growing these in indoor facilities using
True.
artificial lights, and that's
Right.
not the same at all as sunlight. So
This
yeah,
last day at the farmer's market, there sure was spinach, but I'm in the Pacific Northwest. But now I'm going to ask the farmer. I'm going to
it's
ask him, how are you growing your
yeah,
spinach, bro?
yeah, please do, because it is not indoor artificial lights is not the same. I don't want food grown under an artificial environment.
Nope.
Yeah, I believe Justine is exactly right. Man, you were talking and it made me think of something. Oh no, Laura, feel free to cut this, but uva
Yeah.
ursi,
Yes.
UVA ursi. I
Yes.
don't know if yeah. So
I
you can
have
drink
it.
the tea or yeah, that. Have you tried that for your urgency symptoms?
No, it's in my supplement graveyard somewhere.
Try it. I love it. I
Okay.
love uva ursi for yeah.
Okay.
And if you go to, so I use the one from Supreme Nutrition Products with
Okay.
clients. And if you
Okay.
go there, their uva ursi supreme, if you just read you don't have to get it from there, but just read the write-up on it and
Mhm.
the research on like interstitial cystitis
Cystitis.
and
Yes.
yeah, and just
Mm.
any kind of like urinary symptoms. It even talks about its ability to help break down the oxalates in the body.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so
Thank you for
check
that.
out it's a really good write-up. I think they do a really good
Cutting
job
that.
on this.
Okay, I will definitely do that.
You're not cutting that.
I'm honestly in my journey I did medical medium diet for a couple years and I juiced
Oh,
all this celery.
you are riddled.
I'm
Yeah.
riddled, I know. So, and I'm feeling it in my joints. So I don't know if that's
Yeah.
a little bit of dumping happening right now. And it seems to
Yeah.
move from one to another in just
Yeah.
in certain, just the distal interphalangeal. I'm noticing that in this last year. And I'm like, is that
Wow.
dumping? Because I have a really pretty low oxalate diet. It
Yeah.
could be. So yeah, but I will
I
look
would,
that up. Thank you.
yeah.
Great.
Keep me posted. I love that stuff.
Probably should ask you about, I know we've talked lots, we could keep going and going on
I
nutrition,
know
but
this is so much fun.
it is fun. Oh my gosh. But you're a breath coach as well. Can you tell us about that? Are you also a yoga instructor?
No, no, I actually don't enjoy yoga. I tried that here in Costa Rica for a good period of time. I loved our instructor, so I would keep going because she was a lot of fun, but it's not my favorite activity. I would much rather just work out strength training. But so breath coach, the way that breath work found me
Mhm.
is I did a holotropic breathwork experience in Houston, Texas. And I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that you could reach altered states using the breath. And I thought, well, that's really cool that we have at our disposal, our ability to reach altered states just within us and not have to use like, an exogenous substance or something like that.
Mhm.
So I had no idea what to expect. A friend of ours recommended it to us and we all went together, my husband, me and her. And it was such an incredible experience. I don't teach that at all. That is very like way beyond my pay grade. I just teach your more classical types of breath work that really anyone can do. You're not going to get to like an altered state of consciousness with these unless you start like hyperventilating or something like that. But I just found I had such a profound experience from that breathwork session that I had to learn more about the breath and how I could use it in my clients, because I didn't really know about breath work whenever I was in my journey of working through anxiety. And man, I just feel like it would have been really, really helpful. So I knew that I wanted to learn some of those modalities so that I could help, I want people that that struggle with mental health issues, anxiety, depression, any of them, to know that they are not doomed for life, right? Like they can absolutely come out of this, and it may or may not be, using a medication from the pharmaceutical industry. They can, but there's other things that we can do to support them to make that more effective, or they can do what I did and come off of it and, whatever. But so I knew that I wanted to learn this tool. And so yeah, I went back to and got a certification, which we were just talking about, but I went and I got a breath coach certification, and I learned some really amazing tools and strategies and how to teach it. I have not really done it in like a group setting, so I primarily just do it one-on-one with the clients that I work with as part of their, it'll be part of their protocol. So I'll build it into their protocols. But I
Beautiful.
absolutely, it's very powerful.
Yes.
That's
I'm a Wim Hof. I've done level 1 and level 2 Wim Hof.
Incredible.
Thank you. I did it, yeah, in 2019. I was like the only girl on this course.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, it's been quite a journey. But just this year, this winter, in fact, I told you about the Sunday group. That's I'm starting that. But on a Friday, my Pilates instructor, and Andeea, by the way, is big into Pilates right now. She's been having this, she has a sauna in her backyard, and she has a fire and then two cold tubs. So we go into the sauna, and she's been doing all this breath work with us. So I'm actually a lot more intrigued about breath work. And then we come out, do our cold, like 3 minutes. And I'm in Canada, so
Yeah.
it's pretty chilly outside in addition to the cold, the ice cold water. And
Mhm.
then we're actually out by the fire for a little bit too. And it's all mindset, right? Because
Yeah.
it's freezing cold, but it makes it easier knowing that you're getting back into a warm sauna. But the breathing and learning, box breathing and
Mhm.
nasal breathing, and each week she's been doing something different with adding in intentions.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more to breathing
It
than
really
even
is.
like I just knew the Wim Hof, which is, kind of almost like hyperventilating, and then these long, long, long holds.
Mm.
But I do know that you can get high on your own supply, because
Yep.
I've found that.
It's pretty crazy. Have you tried a holotropic breathwork session?
No, but I'm wondering if this is what this Sunday group might be. We might be doing, because
Oh
we do a lot
man.
of breath work. Yeah.
If it's not, look into it. It's
Okay.
really, really powerful. We did one here too in Costa Rica. Actually resonated more with the instructor that we did it with the first time, but just it's mind bending what the breath is capable of doing. Yeah, that's so exciting. What an amazing setup that you have. Like
I'm
you have like a whole system there,
yeah, I'm
like in
I'm
her
blessed.
backyard.
And we also go, we cold dip almost every weekend. Because my Wim Hof instructor happens to live in the little village that I live in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know. I'm so blessed with some
Yeah.
of the people that are here that are into. But tell us about, you're in Costa Rica. First of all, where are you in Costa Rica?
Yeah, so we're actually, it's the area that we're in right now is considered the San Jose province, but it's right on the line of a different province called Punta Arenas. It's in the very southern of Costa Rica, about 2 hours from Panama. So we're really far south.
Ah. Oh, like so
And
south of Osa? Is that the Osa
yeah,
Peninsula?
it's the Osa Peninsula. Yep,
Okay.
that's where we're at.
What would be the town nearest that I would know?
So we are in Platanillo, Baru, Baru,
I don't know it. Okay.
Uvita, Dominical.
Oh, Dominical, I've been
Yeah,
there.
yeah, that's 10 minutes right down the
Oh my
mountain
God, I
from
know
the river.
exactly where you are.
Yeah. So we
Oh,
love this area. This was, I think, the third or fourth area that we explored and settled in. And when we got here, we just knew that this was the area that we love the most. You just have the best of everything. You have mountains, you have jungle, you have rivers, oceans, you know,
Surfing.
you have it all. Yeah, you have it all right here. So yeah, that's where we're at here in Costa Rica.
Wow. And do you surf, by the way?
No, I do not surf. That's more my husband's gig. I just kind of hang out on the beach and,
Okay.
you know, watch.
And quantum, we've talked to one person on the podcast who moved to Nicaragua and, you know, was explaining sort of his journey with using some of the quantum health strategies. How has it impacted your health, would you
Oh
say?
my gosh. Well, I got my period back after 24 years. I would say that's been pretty impactful on my health. I'm pretty excited about that. Wasn't sure at the age of 41 if that was going to happen. I abused birth control from the age of 17 until about the age of 36. Once I removed the birth control, aside from an instance of breakthrough bleeding, I never had a period. So we're in 2024,
Wow.
we spent 10 months in Costa Rica before going back to the States for the holidays. And then we just got back for 2025 in February. And we're still in February. And today it's decided to return and present itself. So I have nothing, you know,
Today.
today, this
Today.
morning.
This is
Yeah,
a historic
this
podcast.
morning. Yeah,
Just
I'm
wanted to
telling
make
you.
sure we emphasize the word today.
Day. Yeah, it was not what I was expecting at all. I noticed a little bit of cramping discomfort when I went on my hike this morning, and I had nothing else to attribute that to other than I had a little bit of broccoli last night for dinner, and I thought maybe it's gas. And it wasn't. So I'm super excited. So what has Costa Rica done for me? It's done that for me. But it is also, so my husband also retired from corporate America at the same time. We did it at the same time, December 2023. We both left our jobs in corporate America. He was a rotational shift worker in the oil and gas industry. So he had one of those schedules where he would go on 7 nights and then, you know, be off for 3 days, then go on 4 days, be off for 2, go on 4 nights. It was kind of one of those
That's rough.
schedules. And he did that for, you know, about a couple of decades. And we really started to see the older that he got, the longer he did that, the more time it took him to recover each shift change, each time he came off of shift. And it, you know, it just like with the brain stuff, he was having a really hard time from that. And it was so much so that by the time he was starting his next shift, he was still trying to recover from the one that he just got off of. So we knew we had to make a decision there. It was no longer a risk that we were willing to take. And so we made the decision to sell everything we own and pack up and come to Costa Rica so he could do some much needed healing. And apparently so I could do some much needed healing. And that's exactly what this country has offered us. And it has been very generous. And we have accepted her gifts with much graciousness.
Oh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you found a community there too?
Yes. So funny story. So we explored the first 3 months. When we got to Costa Rica, we explored different areas. You know, the Guanacaste area, which is more up north and very dry and a lot of concrete there now. So when we found this area that we're in now, my husband's always wanted to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well, this area had a BJJ facility. So he went and, you know, signed up to join that facility, and the community really just like the world just opened up for us. Like we met some amazing people through that facility. They did yoga through that facility. That's where I met my yoga friend from there. We met the neighbors that lived right next door to us. They also, you know, participated in that gym. So yeah, community just once we signed up for like whether it's like just the regular free weights gym or the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've just met some really incredible, you know, really amazing people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, can you think of anything else you want to hit on? I think we've touched on
No.
the pieces that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. I can totally see you coming back. We could keep talking
It
for a
was
few
fun.
hours.
Yeah. Y'all have to bring me back once you talk to Sally.
Yes,
That's going to be a
Yes.
fun talk.
That's going to
it
be a
is.
So we have a signature question, Courtney, we always ask,
Okay.
is what does quantum healthy mean to you?
Healthy means to me what I've discovered here in Costa Rica, and that
Oh.
is just the complete and utter surrender and reconnection to sun and nature. It's so devoid in much of people's lives back in the States, and you just really don't know different. The people here don't know different. It's all they know. And it's been absolutely incredible to be a part of. So that quantum healthy to me is the complete surrender and just acceptance of the gifts of the sun and nature.
You gave me goosebumps when you said surrender. That's what we have to do in recovery.
That is my intention for 2025. I don't do like the New Year's goals. I do intentions. Last year was do the hard things, and dear God, we did the hard things last year. And this year it was just surrender, like stop trying to control everything, which is why I was like, no, don't send me your questions. I'm surrendering. We're just gonna do this organically. And there's so much to that. It's yeah, when you truly allow yourself to do it, it's pretty cool.
How can people find you if they want to work with you, Courtney? Do you have
I
like YouTube or
I
Instagram?
do. I am everywhere at
Everywhere?
Neurotic Farmer. My website is not neuroticfarmer.com. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the things at Neurotic Farmer.
Awesome.
Okay, and that was the question, Andeea. I forgot. Why are you called the neurotic farmer?
Well, it stems back to my old days whenever I struggled with anxiety. I would have considered myself a very neurotic person. And before I started this journey, I had a I had a handle on Instagram. It was functional neurotic. That was my handle on Instagram. So it was a play on like, functional alcoholic or something like that, but it was a
Right.
functional neurotic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then I got off of social media because it's not my favorite thing in the world. It's not a very healthy behavior. Again, back to kind of the dopamine thing that we were talking at the beginning of this. So I got off of it for a really good amount of time. And then whenever I started health coaching and working with clients, I needed a way to be able to share more information with them outside of like our sessions and that kind of stuff. So you know, got rid of functional neurotic and started with neurotic farmer. Now the farmer piece came from my husband and I bought an old farm. It was a retired farm. We bought that back in, I think it was 2021. I think we've had it. This will be the 4th year that we've owned it. And we raised our own meat birds for a season and harvested them, and we were going to move cattle on there. And then we
Wow.
decided, yeah, and then we decided we were going to no, we're gonna leave corporate America. We're not gonna stay in this area. We're gonna leave that. And so I just held on to it from that. Now, instead of starting my own farm on our property, now I just say that plant seeds of hope in people. That's where the farmer piece comes in. So
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, Courtney, I have the honor of thanking you for coming on with us today. And I have a few points. First is just thank you for being so open and sharing. Today's the first day of your period, being tapped so many years, and these horrible oxalates coming out of body parts. We'll probably never forget this, but you know what? It's so instructive. It's the people that are going to listen to this are going to be impacted by you sharing. And want to thank you for a quote, Andeea. I hope you're writing this one down. I've chicken scratched it here, but I'm gonna quote you. I think we're gonna quote you. It's we are all looking for our next hit of dopamine. That was
oh
just that that really hit home because it's so true. Going back to what I was telling you about the stats of, how many people are like for us, or if we're the second most addicted country, is US the first? I don't know,
yeah.
or are we just pretty bad here in Canada? Thank you for doing the hard things. Your intention for 2024 in facing the fears that you had, with anxiety and really having the courage after, having that breakdown and just to stop, all the centralized medication and the journey that it took you on, maybe on a few supplements, but now, and then to stop the whole belief in being a victim to your genes.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that with us. That was huge. So thankful you found quantum biology, and thank you to Dr. Cruz for
Yeah.
putting you on that path and continuing ever since. And thank you for being a beacon of hope for all those that are that are going through anxiety and just disillusioned. Like I think found this on your website, by the confines of conventional medicine. I really love that wording. And finally, your new intention, surrendering and just using nature's innate wisdom and ancestral traditions to help all the people that you're helping.
Yeah.
And may many
Thank you
more
so
find you
much.
because of this podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you both so much. This was so much fun. Really appreciate you allowing me to come on and share my story, and hopes that we can just continue to help more people.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next time. Thank you for sticking around at the end of this podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, VIVARAYS, who allows for us to get this information to you. They offer top of the line blue blocking glasses, which, as we know, are critical for our health these days for blocking artificial light at night. Over 90% of our time is spent indoors under artificial lights, and this puts us all prone to circadian rhythm disruption. You can use the code Quantum Healthy for a discount. Link is in the show notes.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakissmanwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.